All right, so just figured I'd get out from under the truck. I know you guys don't know this, but I've already been working on it. Just thought I'd get out and do a little intro. Made mention there that it was a pretty nice looking truck for a 1996, and that I wanted the truck for myself, and my son also wanted it, so I bought it for him as his first vehicle. Truck's got 300, a little over 300,000 miles on it. I think around 310, something like that. 4-wheel drive XLT 5.0. Runs good. I've done a lot of work to it, but these old trucks will last if you, and not cost you a fortune if you know how to do a little maintenance and repair on them to keep them going. But reason I'm working on it is had a transmission leak. It looked like it was coming from the transmission gasket on the pan, so I got under there, needed to do service on it anyway, so I got under there, dropped the pan and all, put a new gasket, refilled it with transmission fluid, and it started to leak almost instantly, just a drip. And got underneath, checked out the where the leak was coming from, and it was coming from the extension housing between the transmission and the transfer case. Checked the bolts. All the bolts were loose for some reason. I'm less than finger tight. Surprised none of it fell out. But anyway, so looking at it, I could tell the gasket had blown out some spots from it being loose. I knew what I was doing was not a permanent fix, but I just torqued the bolts back down to the proper spec, because what I was wanting to do was make sure that there wasn't a transmission issue. So I got the leak to stop temporarily, drove the truck around, and made sure it shifted good and all that after I did the service on it, and it did. So parked the truck, came out the next day, and I noticed it had quit dripping. It went from a drip to dang near a pour. So it was just dumping the transmission fluid out onto the ground, put a catch pan under it, and anyway, it dripped till it got to a level that it couldn't drip anymore. So this video is about taking the drive shafts out, the transfer case out, the extension housing, that sort of deal. I couldn't find a video like that. It was a total video for 4-wheel drive. Not real good at making videos, if you notice they a lot. So anyway, get sidetracked, and is a space filler. So anyway, hopefully this video will be helpful to you if you got one of these trucks, or possibly one a little newer, one a little older. But it's not, so far it's not real hard getting the drive shafts out or anything. I mean, if you got a good impact, the hardest part's been so far was getting the bolts out of from the drive shaft to the rear end. That was the hardest part so far. Yeah, other than that, it's been fairly simple. Now the next couple parts are going to be a little bit more challenging. Gonna have to support the transmission, take the transmission mount out, best I can tell. Cross member that holds the transmission up, the transmission mount needs to come out, and then need to unbolt the transfer case and pull the transfer case. Not sure if I'm going to pull the transfer case or the transfer case and the extension housing, but I'll kind of figure that out as we go along, how we're going to do it. May just leave the extension housing connected to the transfer case and pull both at the same time, or may pull the transfer case and then pull the extension housing. Both gaskets have to be replaced anyway on both ends. Probably going to replace some other seals once I get this thing out and take a look at everything. And anyway, we'll see what happens when we get to that point. Thanks for watching. Got a 1996 F150 XLT. 302 5.0 with the 4R70W transmission. Borg Warner transfer case. Just replaced the transmission oil pan gasket and transmission oil pan. And we still got a leak right here at the extension housing, where the extension housing meets the transmission. Somehow the gasket blew out the side and it's leaking, and all of these bolts were loose for some reason. All of the bolts on the housing where it bolts to the transmission. So we're gonna pull all this out and possibly replace that extension housing. I have one of those that I bought, and then I got the two gaskets, so we're gonna look and see what kind of condition this one's in. We're gonna pull all this out of here and see if we can get this leak to stop. Stay tuned. We're gonna start back here at the drive shaft. Take the drive shaft loose from the rear end. 4 12mm bolts. Once we get those bolts out, should be able to just slip it right off the tail housing of the transfer case. We got a 12mm 12-point box end wrench. I don't know if it matters, but I marked the location of the drive shaft to the rear end in case it's got something to do with the way this thing's balanced to see weights on the drive shaft. But anyway, marked it so we can put it back like it came out. What I'm gonna do, I may not be able to show you this, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna put the wrench on, bump it with a little sledgehammer that I got laying around here, right here. Go bump it with that and try to break torque. And then we'll get a ratchet or my impact or something and take on the rest of the way out. See if how much of this I can show you. Try to do this with one hand. But anyway, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna use both hands, so I'm gonna pause the video, get this bolt started. All right, so I just bumped it with the hammer, gradually getting harder and harder until I got it loose, and now I can move it by hand. I'm gonna do that with the other three, and then we'll work on getting the drive shaft out. All right, so I got the first two that were on the bottom loose, pretty much no problem. Put the truck in neutral, rolled it back a little, brought the top bolts down to the bottom. When I was trying to get those loose, smacked myself in the arm with the hammer after it bounced off the wrench. Anyway, so decided to go a different route. I don't have a impact ready 12-point 12mm socket, so I'm just going to use a standard socket on this Milwaukee high torque impact. It's a 1/2-inch impact anyway. So, but first I'm gonna introduce a little heat to these with this MAP gas. Just heat them up a little bit. I'm sure there's probably some Loctite or something on these bolts. Like I say, the first two, they came loose with some effort, but not as much effort as I was putting into these other two. So we're gonna use some battery power to try to get those loose. Just take our torque. Put a little heat on these bolts. Don't do this if you got a gas leak. Anyway, y'all get the idea. So a little heat and a lot of impact
Got those loose. They're hot though, so we can't take them out right now. Also, impact wrench beat my swivel apart. I found a pin, we have to put it back together. Cobalt. Anyway, so we're that much closer. Give another little warning here. You don't want to be directly under this drive shaft when you take the last bolt out, just in case it falls. Might have to tap on it to get it loose. Might just fall right out, so you don't want your face under it. Want to make sure you got a good hold on it. Just a little tip. All right, we got all 4 bolts out. This one's just staying up there. It didn't fall down, but I don't know when or if this thing's ever been taken out of this truck. But so what I'm gonna do is take my hammer again. I'm gonna bump these little ears here and some right here on the universal joint, just not hard where we deforming anything, but just to kind of vibrate it loose, and it should come on down. All right, a couple small taps. She came loose. If yours is a little more aggravating than this one, you may have to type it a little bit more, a little harder. Just like I say, don't tear nothing up where it makes it more aggravating of a job than it already is. So now we're just gonna slide it forward a little bit and lower it down. All right, and just like that, it's on the ground. Now you can see, I don't know if you remember from earlier in the video, this, you can see a little more of the shaft here. So now all we got to do is lift up and slide it off. Let's see if I can do it one-handed. I watch a universal joint right there, but maybe a little bit of fluid might come out of this, but maybe not. Yep, there it is right there. All right, so not terribly heavy, but you don't want it to surprise you and hit you in the face when it falls down. That's it. Got some dripping. Should have had a pan here, but I figured it had leaked so much that there wouldn't be any fluid right there, really. I guess I was wrong. It's starting to slow down already, but anyway, have to watch out for that now. Now the pro tip here, those 4 bolts that came out, if you had to heat them up with a torch, wait on them to cool, but put them back in the holes. Not necessarily the one that came out of, just put them back in the holes so you don't have to look for them later if you set them somewhere. Some of mine's still a little hot. I'm not gonna reach down there and guess which ones. So we'll give them a little while to cool off. But when they cool off, I'm gonna thread them back into here a little bit so I don't gotta hunt for them later. Almost forgot to mention, another reason I'm doing this job is she needs new universal joints. They wore out. Feels like all the needle bearings fell out. But anyway, that's part of it. I wasn't planning on tearing this apart and putting it back in there with that same universal joint in there. We just gotta get that front shaft out too so we can check those universal joints, but checking good or not, I don't know how many miles they got on them. We're probably gonna put some new ones all the way around. I don't get any kind of sponsors or anything, but I'm a big advocate for Milwaukee Tools. I probably own at least 30 of their batteries, anywhere from 12 amp hour. I got some 9s, some 8s, 6s, 5s. I don't have anything smaller than 5s. But anyway, I got a bunch of Milwaukee Tools, and some of them I've had for 10 years and they still work just fine. No problem. But if you're working on stuff, this guy right here is a beast. Just, I mean, if you need it, this is the high torque model right here. Anyway, it's got 3 LED lights on the front. I'll show you those. There's the other one down there. Got an nice ring you can hang it with, but I hadn't tried to take anything loose yet that this impact wouldn't take loose. Like I said, it's 1/2 inch drive. I think you can get them in 3/4 inch drive. Possibly bigger, I'm not sure. I don't have any need for anything really bigger with the type of stuff I do. So, but anyway, good tool. Highly recommended, along with a lot of other Milwaukee tools. So this is the front drive shaft here. It runs from the transfer case to the front differential or axle, whatever you want to call it, front end. Anyway, I'm not sure how big of a treat this thing's gonna be to get out of here. Hopefully it won't be terrible. Anyway, we'll get it out one way or the other. Maybe a little hard to see through all the dirt, but this one, it's got nuts on this side. Not gonna be able to get an impact in here. Hopefully we can break those loose with a wrench, shallow socket, something. But anyway, this almost looks like it's got, for lack of a better term, a U-bolt type situation around it that holds it in. Same thing on the other end down here. Same type of situation. They look like U-bolts that go over the ears on the universal joints. But anyway, we'll get this, try to work on getting this loose and out of the way. If I run into anything or pick up any tips along the way, I will let you know. Figured maybe I'd point this out also. I've already unplugged this harness. I just stuck it right up here. There's a couple tabs on, they're supposed to be on this piece, I think, but they're broken off of this one. So anyway, this guy plugs on here like this. Just unplug it, lift your tabs up. May have to wiggle it a little bit, depends on how dirty your truck is. If you ever took this off, if it's real tough, you could probably use a flathead screwdriver once you create a little gap and help you pry it off. I wouldn't plastic, so I'd be careful doing that, but I don't see what you could hurt unless you're just too rough on it. These front ones are 12mm also. They don't seem to be torqued quite as tight as the back ones. Fairly easy to turn by hand, at least these are. I hadn't made it up there to that end yet, but really hadn't took any of these off. I just put it on there and turned it, and it feels like it's going to come loose fairly easy. A lot of times you think that, and then you get on one and you can't break it loose for nothing. So hopefully I didn't just shit in my own hat. All right, we got these loose. Oh shit, they're running a nut. Anyway, 12mm ratchet wrench works wonders on this. Like I said, they're not torqued extremely tight. I have to check and see what the torque specs are on them. Well, I don't know. It'd be hard to get a torque wrench in there and tighten the proper torque specs anyway. So anyway, they was a little better than snug, but not extremely tight. Sounds like a pretty good torque spec to me. All right. Like I said, it looks like a little U-bolt. Anyway, that one's out. The other one, I'm gonna have to rotate this drive shaft to get it out. But I think first I'm gonna go up front and loosen the other 4 nuts. I'm not gonna take them completely out right now, but I'll go ahead and loosen them. That way I can pull this drive shaft out. All right, now we're up here at the front. Something's peeking through there, make it a little hard to see without a glare. See if I can get this wrench on here and give you a little indication. Of course, you don't know how strong I am. Might be the strongest guy in the world. Well, I'm not gonna show you right now because on this truck, these are a different size than back there. These were 12, just like the where the drive shaft connects to the rear end. Those were also 12s. This must be a 13 on the front. I don't know, maybe so you can't mix them up. Not sure what the reason behind that is, but my 12 millimeter does not fit that, so now we got to get a 13. All right, so the ones on this truck on the front are indeed 13 millimeter. I don't know why they changed them from one size to another, but anyway, I'll show you how not tight they are, I guess. Oh man, I'm just kidding. They're not tight. See there, just snug. We call it snug plus. And depending on how dirty your truck is, you may need to run them out a little bit, run them back in, knock some of the dirt out the threads, unless you're smarter than me and you get under there and you spray some WD-40 or something on there, rinse the threads out and all that before you get started. But anyway, we'll get these out, and I won't make you watch me take all of them out unless I run into trouble, and then I'll let you know about the trouble. All right, stay tuned. So while taking these out, I just thought about something. I wanted to give people a little pointer in case they're working on this. I don't know how anybody will ever find it buried in this video, but I replaced the oil pan gasket on this truck, and evidently 302 and 351 aren't as easy to change as the 300 inline 6. Well, little tip, you can get this oil pan out. It will not come out the back way by the transmission. I saw a bunch of videos saying it came out this way by the transmission. That's bullshit. It don't come out that way. I even cut my exhaust in two to get it out of the way 100%, and still could not work it down between this cross member and the transmission. If you take the motor mounts loose, loosen the transmission motor mounts, probably take those all the way, the bolts all the way off of that also. Jack the motor up from somewhere in here, put your board across here and you jack under. Jack the motor up high as it'll go. This oil pan will fall down far enough for you to get in there and take the oil pump out. If you need to take the oil pan off, you have to take the oil pump out. But if you remove your radiator and all, which what we were doing was replacing the timing chain sprockets, timing sprockets, timing chain, timing housing, water pump, so everything on the front of the motor has been replaced. So we took the radiator out anyway. But if you jack this motor all the way up, this oil pan, after you take the oil pump out, will go out the front. If you need to do any kind of work on it, clean it up really good, whatever, it'll go out the front. I could not find any way to get it to come out the back past this transmission without taking the transmission out. So that's just a little tip. Back to our regular scheduled programming here. All right, so we got these out. Now, I'm hoping all you do, because I'm making this video for me just as much as I am everybody else, but I'm hoping all I got to do is grab it here, push back this way. I'm hoping it'll compress right here under this boot and give me just enough room to get this thing out. At least that's my hopes. Never done this before. I do a lot of mechanicking. but I am not a paid mechanic. And this truck belongs to me anyway. I bought it for my son. Anyway, just maybe another little pointer. Don't buy your kid an old truck unless you want to work on it all the time. I wanted this truck for myself because it's a nice looking truck. I'll show you the truck in some part of this video. But anyway, it's a really nice looking truck. And I wanted it for myself just to cruise around in. And my son had to have it, so I gave it to him. And I have worked on it ever since. Due to young boys don't drive things as easily as old men. Anyway. Alright, so I just took my hammer and bumped it right here to get it out of the ears, and it does compress there at that boot. Sorry if I'm shaking the camera a lot, I'm pulling on the boot. But and it'll give you enough clearance to slip it out of the choke here. I'll need to clean all that up. Got years and years of dirt under it and all, but anyway, we say new universal joints both ends on this one, as well as the rear drive shaft. Anyway, all right, we'll be back with you shortly. All right, and there's the front drive shaft laying on the ground. Again, drive shaft's not very heavy. Don't let it surprise you and knock your teeth out. Just make sure you're not under it. If you are under it, keep an arm or a hand or something up in front of your face in case it comes falling down. Shouldn't, because you kind of got, it's kind of, we'll say, spring loaded. That boot up there is kind of holding a little bit of tension on it to keep it in there, keep them falling out and hitting you. But anyway, just be careful, use some caution, common sense. All right, sorry about the dinging in the background. I got the key on them. I'll turn it off in a minute, try to get here. I just stuck these U-bolts back in here for safekeeping, like I was mentioning before, so you don't have to hunt them down, you don't have to look for the nuts or anything like that. But anyway, the same thing back here. Just stick them back in, put the nuts back on, where you can find them later. Still got to go back there, put the 4 bolts back in. We'll do that in a minute, because I'm about to get out from under here for a little bit, and then we'll resume the video. So, took about a 5-minute break, and anyway, about to get back underneath the truck. Just wanted to kind of tell everybody where we're at right now. I got the front drive shaft out, the rear drive shaft out, including filming the video. That probably took a half hour, and that's with filming these things and trying to give, you know, some pretty decent information on how to do it if you don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. It's my first time. But if you got a little mechanical knowledge and things like that, it's not very hard. Now when it comes to the transmission portion and the torque specs on all that stuff, that's very important to follow. You need to make sure you torque everything down right and in the proper sequence. So anyway, sorry, my dog barked and kind of distracted me a little bit. But anyway, like I say, follow the torque specs on putting the transmission and all back in when you get to that point. But we hadn't made it to that point yet. We still got to get the transfer case out. All right, so you can see I stuck the 4 bolts back in the rear end. It holds the drive shaft in, that way we don't lose them. Next, we got to get the transfer case out. And as far as any information I could find, which wasn't a whole lot on doing this, need to pull this cross member out, along with taking the transmission mount out got to support the transmission. We'll do that shortly before we start taking any of this apart. But anyway, we're going to support the transmission with a jack and a piece of wood. Then we're going to work on taking the cross member out and the transmission mount out. That way we can unbolt the extension housing from the transmission and hopefully take the transfer case out along with the extension housing all in one piece. All right, so before I get too far into this, I decided, here's the transfer case. Let me back this camera off a little bit. Yeah, here's the transfer case. This is the beginning of the extension housing, and this is where the extension housing connects to the transmission. I decided I'm gonna take it apart right here. I don't know if that's the best decision, but if I make a mistake doing that, I'll let you guys know, and y'all know not to do that. So anyway, best I can count from under here, there's 6 bolts attaching the transfer case to the transmission. I was able to reach up to the very top with a 13mm ratchet wrench and take the top 2 bolts out, one on either side. There's a bolt up here, and then opposite of that on the top side there's another one. Not that hard to get to. This truck has dual exhaust. Still doable. You can get it with a 13mm ratchet wrench. I've loosened these 2 middle bolts, one here, one on the opposite side. Just cracked them loose. I'm going to use those to support, to keep this thing from falling down. I'm going to take out the 2 bottom bolts, leave it kind of hanging, but also compression here is going to keep this thing from falling down. I'm going to support the transfer case somewhere or another, and take the last 2 bolts out, and then see if I can slide this thing out by myself. If not, I have to recruit some help from one of my kids. Anyway, just kind of wanted to tell y'all what I had going on, that I decided to break the transfer case loose from the extension housing and then try to tackle this part next. I'm sure fluid's gonna dump out of here. This gasket had to be replaced anyway, so does that one up there between the extension housing and the transmission. But I thought maybe it would be easier to deal with this cross member here and this transmission mount without the weight of the transfer case sitting on it. I'll let you know if that was a bad idea or not. But anyway, just kind of wanted to fill you in what I had going on. This way, in case anybody's confused, this is the front of the truck this way, back of the truck's back there. All right, it was 6 bolts holding the transfer case to the extension housing. Got all 6 out. Wiggled it back a little bit. Have you a catch pan to catch you some transmission fluid or transfer case fluid, not sure which one. But anyway, 6 of them. I got some help. He's gonna help me. We're gonna slide this thing back and see if it'll come out. We'll let you know. All right, me and my help wiggled a little bit, and it comes down pretty quick. So be ready for it to come down. Anyway, there's the end of the extension housing. Like I say, just 6 bolts. It is, we'll say, female on the transfer case side, male coming out the transmission. Anyway, that's what it looks like up there. And here's what this looks like down here. It's not extremely heavy, but do recommend having a second pair of hands. All right, next we're gonna take these 2 bolts out. I've already started loosening them, but we're gonna take these 2 bolts out on the transmission mount. I can't find my finger in the camera. There it is. All right, so we're gonna take these out. That should loosen the transmission from the transmission mount. Then we're gonna put a jack and a 2x4 or something under here to support the transmission so that it can't sag down. All right, we got the two transmission mount bolts out of the extension housing. Now we're gonna take our jack and get right under here under the transmission and jack up the transmission a little bit so we can unbolt the extension housing. All right, we supported the transmission underneath the transmission oil pan. You can do this at your own risk. This is a new pan. Put a 2x6 under it, spans the full width of the pan, so it's supported by the sides and the corners on the front of the transmission pan. It gave us some clearance back here at the transmission mount. Now we're going to take the bolts out the extension housing and see if we can get that out. There's some bolts up in here in the top, some more down the sides, across the bottom. All right, these are the bolts out of the extension housing. Long bolts went down here in the two bottom holes, this one and this one. Anyway, the bottom bolts and the middle bolts have flange heads on them. The shorter two flange head bolts went in this hole and this hole. And then we got some 13 millimeters with no flange. Went up here in these, the whole top hole on this side and the top hole on this side. And if you look, there's no gasket on half of this extension housing. There's a little gasket left here, but there's also no gasket on the actual extension housing for these pieces. So I don't know if somebody put it back together with no gasket or if it, what happened with the gasket. Anyway, that's why we're here to fix that. This is the extension housing pulled off. So you see there's no gasket on this side. And there was very little gasket up there. I've already picked most of it off with my finger. But someone's been in here and did this job before. Either did some work on the transmission. Like I said, the truck's got 300,000+ miles on it. But evidently they stripped out this hole right here and put a helicoil in it, because when I took the bolt out, little piece of helicoil came out with it. Can't see it, about looks like a spring. Anyway, evidently they rethreaded it, put that in there to fix stripping out one of the bolts they put in there. So when you take yours apart, it may not have these bolts that don't have flange heads on them. Yours might not be 13 millimeter heads. They might look like this and have 10 millimeter heads on them. But either way, it's only 6 bolts to take out. And I think the way I did it was the easier way. Unbolt the transfer case from here, 6 bolts. Remove the transfer case. Take the 2 bolts, these bolts, out the transmission mount. They feed from underneath here and bolt into the bottom of the extension housing. So one on this side, one on that side. Jack your transmission up just a little bit. All I needed was about 1/8 inch clearance under the extension housing and the transmission mount here. Take the 6 bolts out of this. Then that piece just comes off. Actually, it'll just fall down if you're not holding on to it. Probably the best way to do it would be get the 2 top bolts out, leave these 2 bottom bolts kind of snug, work your way down here, take these 2 bolts out, and these are easier to get to is why I'm saying this. Keep a hand up on your extension housing, crack these loose, put your hand on the extension housing, back these out, and then you can just take that piece out without letting it fall down and maybe ding your shaft or something like that. But anyway, that's not that big of a job, but now I got to figure out what size helicoil I need for that hole right there, so I'll be able to put this bolt back in there.